Welcome back to Outperform the Storm. I'm Martin Soorjoo, performance strategist. Much of what's currently being said about the effective use of AI is missing the most important point. We keep asking which model to use, which workflow to automate, which prompt is the sharpest, and whether we're falling behind. Those are the wrong questions. The right one is in the room where your hardest decisions actually get made, in other words, your own brain, is the operator still able to think clearly? Although the tools are getting better, the brain using them is on average getting worse. And the gap between those two trajectories is where the next round of bad decisions is going to be made. Faster tools, weaker judgment, more confidence, less space to think. That's the risk no one's pricing in. The same gap is also where your edge is hiding. Because in a market where every competitor has the same AI access, the differentiator is no longer the technology. It's the clarity of the mind using it. This episode is about that gap and what becomes possible on the other side of it. In January of this year, the World Economic Forum and the McKinsey Health Institute released a report called The Human Advantage: Stronger Brains in the Age of AI. The central claim is simple, but many will skim past it without absorbing what it actually means. In the age of AI, the human brain does not become less important, it becomes more important. The report introduces a concept called brain capital. Brain capital is a combination of brain health, the physiological foundation that lets the brain function properly, and brain skills like adaptability, complex problem solving, and self-regulation. In plain English, brain capital is the quality of your human operating system. And the AI era is going to reward it more than anything else you build. Not the leaders with the most tools, but the leaders with the strongest operating system underneath the tools. So sit with that for a second, because it changes the target. 73% of founders are burning out while hitting their numbers. This is shadow burnout. High output on the outside, quiet collapse on the inside. You're still shipping, the team still sees the wins, but your focus, your recovery, your internal capacity are quietly collapsing underneath. Now, layer AI on top of a brain in that state. Many leaders assume AI reduces cognitive load. And sometimes it does. It does remove repetitive work. It drafts, it summarizes, it analyzes. But for the person at the top, AI does not reduce the load. It changes it. It increases the judgment load. More outputs to assess, more options to compare, more fluent nonsense that sounds correct, more speed, more ambiguity. But someone still has to ask, is this true? Is it useful? Is it strategically sound? Or is it just well written? And that someone is often you. When you're already running 5 back-to-back meetings with pressure from the board, a key client wobbling, a senior hire underperforming, cash flow you haven't looked at properly in a week, and an inbox you stopped reading at 11 this morning. That's the real operating environment, not the clean demo, not the conference stage, the actual Monday. And in that environment, AI handled badly is not cognitive relief. It's cognitive overload with better branding. Now, there's a distinction worth reflecting on for a moment. For the last few decades, expertise meant knowing the recipe, knowing the process, knowing how things were done in your industry, knowing the playbook. In the AI era, the value of that kind of fixed knowledge is collapsing. A known workflow can be automated, a standard process can be copied, a familiar answer can be generated in 2 seconds. What becomes valuable is the opposite. The capacity to rethink the approach when the conditions change, to see what others miss, to clear up when the old map stops working, to write the new recipe while the room is under pressure. That's not just a technical skill, it's a cognitive and physiological capacity. A brain in threat does not adapt. It contracts, it narrows, it reaches for the familiar. It looks for certainty too quickly and it becomes reactive. This is where most leaders misdiagnose. They think the answer is more information. They already have more of that than they can process. They think the answer is another tool. The tool is not the bottleneck. Their state is the bottleneck. The report points to brain skills as the central capacity of the AI era. Adaptability, complex problem solving, self-regulation, creative thinking. But here's the part that gets missed. Those skills do not operate in a vacuum. They require access. You may have strategic intelligence. You may have 20 years of experience. You may understand your market better than anyone in the room. But when your nervous system is flooded, your sleep is broken, and your body is locked in a constant threat response, and you lose access to your best thinking. Your intelligence hasn't disappeared, your access to it has narrowed. If you've been working this hard and not feeling the return, if you've noticed yourself getting sharper at the inputs, but duller at the judgments, faster at the work, and slower at the wisdom, then you're not broken. You're not lazy, you're not lacking discipline. You're running brilliant software on degraded hardware. And the AI era has just turned up the demand on your system at exactly the moment it was already overloaded. That's the real cost of how most founders are operating now. Not just tiredness, not just feeling stressed, reduced access to the very capacities the AI era is going to demand most. Clear judgment, pattern recognition, self-regulation, creativity, long-range thinking, the capacity to pause before reacting, the capacity to separate signal from noise. That's what's required. Performance infrastructure. Imagine a Tuesday 3 months from now, the board meeting that used to spike your heart rate at 6 a.m. You walk in with a settled nervous system. Your peers around the table are running on cortisol and caffeine. You can feel it in the room before anyone speaks. And you walk in 2 moves ahead of where they are. Not because you worked harder than them the night before, but because the hardware that runs your judgment is online. You open an AI output the next morning. You read it with discernment instead of grabbing it. You catch the assumption buried in the 3rd paragraph that your old self scrolling fast would have missed. You ask a better question. You get a better answer. You make a better call. And then it's Friday afternoon, 4 p.m. The week has been one of the harder ones. A deal slipped. A senior hire isn't landing. There's news from a competitor that you didn't expect. The team is frayed. And you are the calmest mind in the room. Not because you're pretending, but because you have trained the capacity to stay regulated while the storm is moving through the room. And the compounding effect, month after month, decision after decision, is not subtle. This is the version of yourself that's available. Not a different person, the same person, with the operating system underneath restored to the level your ambition has always demanded. That's what brain capital looks like in a founder's actual week. Most performance advice starts with software, mindset, goals, planning, decision frameworks, and all of it has value. But software runs on hardware. Your hardware is your physiological state, your nervous system, your sleep, your recovery, your attention, your capacity to regulate under pressure. If the hardware is degraded, the software doesn't run properly. You can have the best framework in the world, but if you are fried, flooded, and reactive, you won't use it well. You can have the best AI tools in the world, but if your state is poor, you will ask worse questions, accept weaker answers, and miss what matters most. This is the part the AI conversation hasn't caught up with yet. The first wave was tool adoption. Who's using AI? Who's falling behind? Who can automate faster? Who can cut costs? All relevant, but none of it sufficient. The next wave is human capability. Who can think better with AI? Who can stay clear as the volume increases? Who can maintain judgment under speed? Who can lead a team through uncertainty without transmitting panic? That's the human advantage. Before you use AI for something that genuinely matters, the investor update, the board memo, the hiring decision, the restructuring plan, the customer response that could go either way, ask yourself one question. Am I using AI from a standpoint of clarity or from a standpoint of pressure? Because there is a difference between using AI to sharpen thinking and using AI to escape thinking. Between delegating tasks and outsourcing judgment, between accelerating strategy and accelerating reactivity, the question takes 10 seconds. It won't slow you down, but it will change the quality of what comes out. Because the most important input in any AI system is still the human state behind the prompt. And that's the piece that most people are missing. I want to say one more thing. The decade that you're in right now, the next 10 years of building, leading, deciding, is going to be the most consequential window of your career. The AI shift is real. The competitive bar is rising. The cognitive demand on leaders is climbing in a way that previous generations never had to face. You can spend that decade running the same hardware you're running today, stretched, reactive, faster at everything, except the things that actually matter. Capable, but operating at 50% of who you are. Or you can do the work to restore the operating system underneath and spend that decade as the version of yourself you're actually capable of being. The cost of the second option is real. It takes attention, it takes protocols, it takes discipline. The cost of the first option is losing the decade. The future doesn't belong to the leaders who use the most AI. Everyone's going to use more AI. The edge will belong to leaders who can use it with clearer judgment, sharper attention, better regulation, and more adaptive thinking under pressure. A sustained edge, clarity that holds when others lose theirs, not a peak that burns out by Friday. The capacity to think clearly when others go reactive, to decide well when the room is uncertain, to perform at a level your peers cannot access under the same conditions. That's a human advantage in the age of AI. From shadow burnout to sustained edge, that's a worth, and it's worth every minute of it. I'm Martin Soorjoo. This is Outperform the Storm. Thanks for joining me.